Hi guys, it's Sam from WrestleSphere. We hope you enjoyed this video, this interview that we did with Speedball Mike Bailey. He talks about his career up until now in Impact Wrestling and his aspirations for the future, including the Impact Heavyweight Championship and the Impact X Division Championship. So, enjoy. Brill. Right then. So, Mike, yeah, thanks for joining us. It's I'm not gonna. I've been watching you for a while, and I actually showed you what's one of your matches to my wife a while ago to say look at this guy, look how unique he is. So she you became she's a fan of yours now as well. Um, one
That's
thing
awesome.
what I've realised is we interviewed you Soundsphere and Give Me a Hull a little while ago. But this is the first time we've ever spoken to you as WrestleSphere. It was Dom Smith, my colleague, who interviewed you last time. And one thing that we didn't ask, which I'd love to know about, is your origin story. As like I said to Trey Miguel, you're like a superhero in wrestling, so every superhero has an origin story. So I'd very much like to hear yours. Where did your love of wrestling begin? And after that, how did you break into the business?
So I remember very specifically the moment where I started watching pro wrestling and fell in love with it. It was immediate. It was specifically Kane was trying to set the Brood on fire. So a giant masked man trying to set a gang of vampires aflame, and me and my brothers were watching, and immediately went like, "Yep, this is it. This is what we're gonna do with our lives now." And immediately, as soon as we started watching, before they even got the chance to give us the warnings of don't try this at home, we just tried it at home. First thing, took the mattresses down from our beds and put them on the ground and started giving each other drop kicks and suplexes right then and there. And I was just about 7 years old.
So it was like not Vikings, vampires and fake burn victims, giants. I'm thinking, yeah, this is the sport I'm going to follow. This is the sport for me. Yeah,
So
100%.
correct, which is kind of ironic given like how wrestling has evolved and how I've and the kind of wrestling that I do and prefer. That was really like my port of entry into professional wrestling, but it didn't take me very long to like stumble upon the more athletic, action-packed side of professional wrestling that really sort of, as I was getting slightly older and maybe considering this in a slightly more realistic way than as a 7 year old, I was like, now this is actually something I could do, right? Because, of course, I had no actual interest in playing a vampire, and I knew that I wasn't, going to grow to 7 feet tall, given that everyone in my family is quite short. But so the like martial arts based stuff, especially when I started doing martial arts and all that action packed stuff, really started making a big impression on me. Stuff like the like a lot of Japanese wrestling that I stumbled upon, as well as the early X Division stuff that was super influential to my love of professional wrestling.
That's awesome. So, because a lot of people don't know that because your style it is very unique. It's a lot of kicks. It's very martial arts orientated. You come out to the ring in a gi quite a lot. And I don't think there's obviously we've seen people in the past who've done something similar, but no one's ever been quite on your level and incorporated that into their style like you do. And I'm not just saying that to put you over. What was the point when you thought to myself, do you know what? This martial arts style, this is the guy I'm going to be. Because people don't know about you. Like you're a shooter as well. You do a lot of martial arts competitions and things like that. And which is obvious after a while when you look at you and you've watched it for a few years. So when did you decide, you know what? Because it's so much more than a gimmick to you, isn't it? It's exactly who you are.
So it absolutely is, and I think that's the path as a pro wrestler in figuring out who you are, right? So when I started doing professional wrestling, it was a lot of, you do what you learn in wrestling school, and you kind of do what you see and you try to emulate it, and eventually it takes you a long time to figure out, oh, this is what I'm actually good at and this is what I should do. And it took me a few years to probably figure out just how much my martial arts was unique and allowed me to stand out as a professional wrestler. But so for the most part, there's a lot more to it than the martial arts and the gi and doing the kicks, right? The kicks. Taekwondo is my background, and I competed in Taekwondo for many, many years. I've also done boxing and kind of dabbled in everything else, but not, mostly through pro wrestling. But yeah, the part that is reflected in my career and my persona, way beyond the kicks, it's the mindset of martial arts that has influenced my professional wrestling in the being respectful and disciplined and polite, which is things that are very important to me in real life, and I try to portray on screen as well.
I've got to ask though, um, Mike, what happens if you have an attitude change while you're wrestling with that politeness? How is that going to work if, say, you turn, if you will, to the dark side? Are we still going to see a
So
very polite Speedball?
yes, you are. I mean, there is a. I haven't had the chance to go full bad guy on Impact yet, but I do quite often on a lot of independent shows and other events that I do. And the thing that I think makes me interesting as a bad guy is that I'm able to stay respectful and polite, but also very aggressive, and that willingness to bend the rules but be nice about it is what I think makes for an interesting story. But I've been fortunate enough to work with one Kenny King who really let me show that more aggressive side of me, especially in that pit fight that we had.
Mm.
And that was quite a bit of fun. But yeah, it's definitely something I enjoy. And I think there is the fact that I'm true to my martial arts background and attitude, even when I do become the bad guy, is what makes it more interesting than being a straight up pro wrestling bad guy that just, flips people off for no reason.
I'm quite enjoying you being the hero at the moment, though, Speedball. I think there's a lot more story to tell there, isn't there? Especially with Impact. So I want to talk about a couple of things. So at this moment in time, Impact's a very big stage in the wrestling industry. And now you guys have got Impact Plus, and there's the app. It's so there's more eyes on you than ever before, and more eyes on the Impact product. How does that feel? Being with such a large promotion, and the fact that they've got so many streaming options for you to appear on.
It's fantastic. Honestly, I love what Impact has been doing. One of the ways that I think they really, really stand out is by how much media they've been putting out, how much they've put out on their YouTube channel. I think that's amazing. And one of my favorite reasons to be on Impact is because they have so much available for free to try to get people in. They're on DAZN as well, and Impact Ultimate Deciders. It's very easy to watch, but I don't know if you're familiar with my story very much, but I was unable to wrestle in the US for 5 years between 2016 and 2021. And it was actively my goal then to get better, looking ahead at that time period where I could finally join a promotion with major visibility like Impact. Because for those 5 years, I mean, I never stopped working really hard and having really, really fantastic matches all over Europe for DDT in Japan, all over Canada, which are all like fantastic, absolute world-class promotions, world-class wrestlers, but nowhere near the kind of visibility that I've had since I've joined Impact Wrestling. And that's been absolutely fantastic to know that that I was correct in that thinking that the reason I didn't have as much notoriety as some of my peers in the US was not because I lack the talent, but just because, it's where you are, and Impact has been fantastic in offering me that visibility.
That's awesome. And speaking of the YouTube events, which I love the YouTube specials, by the way, you headlined the last one over Mania weekend in LA at Multiverse United with New Japan Pro Wrestling. Great card, great fun event. But you were wrestling Tanahashi in the main event there. Now, I imagine you've met Tanahashi in the ring a few times before in your career in various guises. But how was that to main event a US show against the Ace? That must have been a huge deal.
So that was actually my first time sharing a ring with Tanahashi.
Oh wow.
I'm not sure if it was my first time actually meeting Tanahashi, if our paths had even crossed before, but it was it was quite the experience for many reasons. Several years ago, quite a few years ago, not quite a few, I want to say maybe up until 2020 or so, I would get asked a lot on interviews and such, who are your dream opponents? Who would you like to wrestle? And my answers were, which were like completely true at the time, but John Cena or Tanahashi,
Mm,
because they are the two biggest names in professional wrestling.
yeah.
This was before AEW even existed, I think, but this was John Cena and Tanahashi because they are two biggest names in professional wrestling. And if I'm wrestling either of them, it means that things are going very, very well. Uh, and then to finally getting to not just wrestle Tanahashi, not just be in a ring with him in a 6-man tag, but actually
Yeah.
share the ring in a main event of a New Japan and Impact joint presentation was absolutely surreal. But speaking of surreal, on top of being a fantastic wrestler, Tanahashi is one of the most impressive human beings I have ever met in my life. He is the ace in the way he wrestles, in the way he carries himself, in the way he dresses, and you will never catch him not being the ace for a second. It's crazy. There's normal people, there's you and me, and then there's Tanahashi. And I think if you like had a lineup of 100 people, just completely random, and went, "Hey, pick out the ace," you would point at Tanahashi and go, "There's the ace," because he would be standing there with his chin raised and chest up and the hand position that he never seems to break from. It's just simply amazing. And that's all reflected in the way he does professional wrestling, which is absolutely impressive. It's even more impressive to be in the ring as he does it than it is to watch.
He'd probably be the only guy in the lineup doing air guitar as well, wouldn't he? So we'd find him just from that alone. See, I that's incredible. So I just assumed that you and him would have been in a 6-man before, be it on Strong, be it on anywhere at all, and in your history. So I didn't know that it was the first time you had met ever. So that must have been an incredible feeling. But speaking about other opponents, that recently we just had Rebellion, great event, enjoyed every moment of it. We even covered it on. With WrestleSphere, like we also have the Give Me a Hell Yeah podcast. I think we covered it on that as well. We did a little bit of a review, but you've been recently colliding a lot with Jonathan Gresham, and Trey Miguel as well, one of Impact's other superheroes. But with Gresham especially, that's one hell of a styles clash between you both. How have you both found that? Has it been fun to do? Has it been challenging? Is it over? Will we see a little bit more of that?
It's definitely not over, and I mean it definitely will not be. See, the thing that people don't know about me and John Gresham is we first had our first singles match, I think, was in definitely our first singles match was in 2015 for CZW Best of the Best. And even before Impact and outside Impact, we've had several more. But he is definitely one of my favorite people to wrestle. Style makes fights is also true for professional wrestling.
Yeah.
We are very different, but we are respectively the best wrestlers in the world at what it is that we do. I mean, there's no denying that, like, John Gresham has narrowed down what he is good at exceedingly well, and there is no one like him out there. And it's just I'm taking it in. I am enjoying the time we have together, even though I know it's far from over in terms of years. Everything has an end, obviously, but I am enjoying it. I am taking it in.
So here's another important question then, which is now we've discussed the octopus. I imagine you're getting put in a lot of knots going up against Gresham as well, so it must be making you nice and limber. So you've been in the X Division title picture for quite a while now, and it's been a bit of a back and forth with some of the other guys. But now that you've held that before, are your thoughts turning to the Impact World Championship? Because let's be honest, in recent weeks, that belt needs liberating. Are you the man to do it?
I don't know. I mean, PCO's up first.
I
I want to. I'm like water. I just flow. And if that takes me back to the X Division Championship, then fine. My plan. So the reason I didn't do option C when I was X Division champion is because I wanted both. I wanted both the X
Yes.
Division Championship and the World Championship. And that is still my plan. There's also the Impact Tag Team Championships that I have been sort of side eyeing. I think that myself and John Gresham work very, very well as a team. So that is definitely something I would consider if he is willing to officially make that a thing. We had a very good 6-man tag match against Time Machine. I think John and I did fantastic in that match. I think our partner Trey Miguel did not. But that's available on YouTube for everyone to watch. And he and I have been teamed up a couple of times before, and I think we do quite well. So I mean, I'm looking at all my options here.
Awesome. That was good. And a little stab at the bad guy as well. That was funny. So it's a good one. So it's fair enough, because I think maybe you do have some unfinished business with the X Division. And I remember, again, when we last interviewed you under another guise, you were talking about how you were excited to be in Slammiversary and you were going to do your first Ultimate X match. Now, I think your exact words were, it's the most Impact match ever. Which is a great way of looking at it, because it is, and I'd love to see you in a few more of them, and I think a lot of fans would love to see you in more of those as well. So I've got one final question, and it's with the X Division and things like that, all coming back to Impact. How is Impact as a home to you now that you've moved past the whole 5 year not being able to work in the US? You know, Impact was the place that you went to, and it seems to be where you're spending a lot of time. How is the promotion as a home to you?
Well, it's a good thing that you mentioned that Slammiversary. It was the 20-year anniversary of Impact, 20-year Slammiversary, and I got to win the X Division Championship in an Ultimate X match, which again was one of certainly the biggest moment of my whole career at that point. I mean, just that photo of me standing up on the X was really momentous. And I, like, without being aware of the color, I had gotten the blue and gold gear because I wanted that color, and it was based off of Raiden in Mortal Kombat 11, made by my wonderful gear maker. Shout out Sway Archer. But the colors and everything, it was just the perfect moment, and I couldn't be more grateful. And I think that Impact is the perfect place for me right now, because that's what I'm getting to do. I am getting to make Impact history. I am getting to make all those moments. Wrestling in 2023, this might be a controversial statement, but is better right now than it's ever been.
Yeah,
undoubtedly. At least to me, it is the best wrestling. It is happening right now, and I think Impact has got a lot of momentum, and everyone there is working super hard to do fantastic things. And I think getting the opportunity to have as much of an impact, no pun intended, on the entirety of the wrestling world is exactly why I am there and why I love being there.
I think you're absolutely right. I was going to say, I think with fans, again, you're a fan yourself as well as working in it, I imagine. But
Of course.
fans go through ups and downs with wrestling, where we sometimes need to take a little bit of a break from it and then we come back to it. And I haven't felt that. Well, I work in the industry now, doing this, so I haven't got a choice anymore. I've got to pay my mortgage. But I think fans, there's a lot of buzz in the air. It feels like a great time to be involved at the moment. Obviously, not everything works out the way we want it to. But I think you got it right there. It's such a good time to be in the industry and to watch it. And finally, just before I let you go, I just want to say thank you very much for what you do and what you put your body through as well. It can't always be easy, but you are tremendous fun to watch, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you do next. And I think a lot. So is my wife, who you're one of her favourites now. Like I said at the start. So there we go. You've won her over. It was you and Finn Balor. You're two favourites now. Can't imagine why. But anyway, she's probably got something to having more abs than her husband. But anyway, that's a conversation for another day.